Okay. Good afternoon, students. Today we are continuing with the last part of Unit 1, that is the Introduction to Nursing Research. Today we are going to discuss about the different phases and steps in nursing research. Research, we have learned that it is a problem solving process. It's a process which consists of several steps, and all these steps are equally important and connected each other. We have to remember that each step is important and we cannot avoid a step or jump on step by skipping some of the steps. Again, the point, if we spend more time in planning in the initial stages, we'll have less headache at the end. So it consists of several phases and steps. The first phase, we call it as the conceptual phase, because in this particular phase we are formulating the concept of research. That exact concept of the research is germinated, nurtured, and the whole planning is done in this particular phase. That is why we call this phase as conceptual phase. It consists of mainly 4 steps. The first step of research process is formulating and delimiting the problem. And second step is review of literature. Third step is developing a theoretical framework. And the fourth step is formulating objective and hypothesis. Now we'll see the first step is formulating and delimiting the problem. The details of all these we discuss in the next chapters. Next unit is the details of this. This is only an orientation to the steps. So the first step is formulating and delimiting the problem. Research always starts from a question. We call as research question. And research question, when we transferred into a statement problem, that called as the research statement. This is a formulating the problem. Now we can raise any type of questions. For example, one person was sitting under an apple tree. You know who's that person? An apple fell on his head. It is just like that. He was not sitting under a coconut tree or a jackfruit tree. He was sitting under an apple tree. So he started thinking, why this apple is coming down? Why it is not going up? So this famous question raised by a scientist in response to a natural phenomena, that is falling an apple, led to the discovery of the theory of gravity. So this is how we raise question and find an answer. So research always starts from a question pertaining to our daily life, or in the clinical practice, or while reading or while walking, we get some feeling. From there we raise questions, and then that will be converted into a statement. And then all these questions are not researchable. A researchable question, according to our limitations, we have to delimit the problem. For example, we have limited time, we have limited resources, we have limited knowledge, etc. According to that, that should be converted into a researchable problem for us. From a very broad area, we limit the problem to a specific area where we can conduct our study. This called as the delimiting the problem. So the first step involved formulating a problem and delimiting the problem. Now step 2 is review of literature. The review of literature sometimes starts before formulating the problem because we get the research question by reading. And review of literature will just continue throughout all the steps and will end only with the last step. So this is a quite extensive step. This prolonged from the first step to the last step. And this is again a very important step because we learn about further and further broader aspect, in-depth aspect of our study by reading literature related to the problem. And for that we can use textbooks written online. You can consult your guide. So many things can be done to learn about the topic that you are studying. So this is second step, review of literature. The third step is developing a theoretical framework. Now, for our study, we can develop a theory that itself is a research, developing a theory. Or you can utilize a theory that was already developed by other theorists or researchers. This theory will help us in identifying the variables, how we have to proceed, what methodology should be utilized for our study, etc. can be developed based on the theory. Because as a science, we always need theoretical support. Then only that will become a science. So we are adopting, we are developing, or we are modifying a theory that is already developing or existing in the field of science. This can be a theory developed by us theorists, or theory developed by other discipline can be converted and modified for your research work. So based on the particular theory that is most suitable for your study, you have to put your variables of study under the theoretical framework and give logical connections for the whole study. The step 4 is formulating objective and hypothesis. So once you have confirmed with the statement of the problem, delimited the problem, and theory is ready, now next thing is you have to identify your objectives. What you want to achieve with the study. What is the aim of your study? And from the aim, you have to develop what are the objectives or subdivisions of the aim. For smaller studies like a BSc nursing project, we have only one or a maximum 2 objectives. Whereas a PhD or postdoctoral studies, we have 7 or 9 objectives. The number of objectives increases, the complexity of the study also increases. And the objective should be a clear cut statement about what we want to achieve, what we want to develop out of our study. And after developing objective, we have to formulate hypothesis. Hypothesis is a predicted relationship between the variables. For example, as height increases, weight also increases, or there is a direct relationship between height and weight. So this is a hypothesis. This is what we are going to test in a study. We are collecting data, we are analyzing the data in order to test hypothesis, and finally we'll say that my hypothesis or prediction in the beginning of the study is right, or my hypothesis is wrong. That's what finally we are saying. But the prediction we make even before the collection of data. So this is the conceptual phase. It is the most important phase, because everything related to the study we are predicting, we are formulating just before the study. So formulating objective and hypothesis is the fourth step. This we call as the conceptual phase. I'll repeat once more. The first phase is called as a conceptual phase. Under that, the step 1 is formulating and delimiting the problem. Step 2 is review of literature. Step 3 is developing a theoretical framework, and step 4 is formulating objective and hypothesis. This is always a very important question for the university examination, and normally an essay is asked from this particular unit about write down the phases or steps in research process with the examples. That's a common question that we can find in most of the question paper, either a short note or majority of the time an essay will be asked from this particular unit. Now next we'll go to the phase 2. This phase is called as the design and the planning phase. So once the concept is formulated, then we are going to develop a design, suitable design, and it plan further to proceed the study. That is why the phase 2 is called as the design and the planning phase. So the next step, that is the fifth step here, is selecting a research design. Step 6, identifying the population to be studied. Step 7, specifying methods to collect research data. Step 8, designing the sampling plan. Step 9, finalizing and reviewing the research plan. And step 10, conducting pilot study and making revisions. Now you can see that there are more number of steps are there in phase 2. That is the design and the planning phase. More activities are done under this particular phase. So this is the most tedious phase, which involves lot of planning, lot of consultation, lot of reading, etc. So the step 5 will see selecting a research design. What is a design? This is the overall plan for the study. When we construct a building, we know that we draw a design by the architect, and the whole building is built according to that. Every measurement, what to be used, every curvature, everything is there in the building plan. So this is the plan of the whole research, selecting a research design. So you are only not developing, or only selecting a suitable research design, because we have already set designs like quantitative designs, qualitative designs are there, true research designs are there, quasi experimental designs are there. There are so many type of research designs are there, and from that, what is suitable for your study to answer your research question, which is the most appropriate design to accept or reject your hypothesis, how you can achieve your objective by adopting one of the best design. So that is why from the available design you choose one important design for your study. This is again very important. If you become, your choice is false, whole research will become absurd. It's become whole waste. Just like how you are selecting a partner in your life, how a girl select husband in the life, it's equally important like that. If your choice is wrong, if you are not consulting others properly, if you are not thinking, if you are not reading, then the whole quality of life is lost. So similar to that, if you are not choosing a suitable design by proper discussions with the guide, proper consultation with others, proper thinking, your whole research is going to become a waste or wrong. So that is the fifth step. Now the sixth step is identifying the population to be studied. So which is most suitable population? For example, if you want to study the effect of a drug in reducing anemia, which is the most important population, it can be an antenatal mother, it can be an adolescent girls, because the population which is affected because of anemia, that is the population you are studying, the most important vulnerable group because of the particular problem. So you have to identify the population of your study. From the population, we have to think about samples, because we collect data only from the samples, but where you are going to generalize your finding, that is the population. That population should be identified. Again, this population you have to identify based on the delimitation of your problem, the time, the money, your budget, your resources, everything should be considered for selecting the population, because you have already delimited the problem. So once you have identified the population, then go to the seventh step, that is specifying methods to collect research data. This is a choosing methodology. Again, according to the research design, even every design, there are a lot of methods are there. In which methodology you are going to use for collecting research data, whether you are going to ask questions, distributing a questionnaire, want to conduct interview, you want to observe the participants and collect data, you want to collect specimens and examine under a microscope in a laboratory, or you want to go to the natural field and see. So all these things, there are so numerous methods are there. You choose appropriate methodology for your collection of the data. Then after that, even methodology involves the analysis plan also, how you will collect data, how you are going to even analyze, what type of statistics you are going to use for analyzing data, and after analysis how you are going to present your data. So all these things also you have to think under methodology. So once methodology is developed, then you go to the step 8, designing the sampling plan. So I have mentioned that We have fixed the population, but it is difficult to collect data from the whole population. For example, we are selecting, doing a study to identify the learning difficulties of BSc nursing students in Kerala because of the online education. So that is the topic. But it may be very difficult for us to collect the data from all BSc nursing students in 128 nursing colleges of Kerala. So we are planning to collect data only from 10 colleges. This sample size is calculated statistically. So they said that we have come to the conclusion that around 2000 students is adequate. That is 200 students in a college into 10 colleges, 2000 is a sample size. So sample means the subset of the population which have all the characteristics of the population. We collect data actually from the samples. Once we are selecting the samples scientifically from the population, we can generalize our findings to the whole population, even though we are doing the study only in samples, because we are scientifically selecting the samples. So there are so many methods are there, scientific methods are there for selecting samples. This we call as the sampling. So which sampling plan you are going to use in your study? How you are going to select the sample from the whole population? This is designing sampling plan. So you have to choose again an appropriate, suitable, well-fitting design plan, sampling plan from the list of sampling plan available. So once that is finalized, we go to the step 9, that is finalizing and reviewing the research plan. We have to finalize by consulting guiding persons, experienced person, peer reviews, that is the friends, researchers, by reading, etc. We have to finalize our research plan, because the finalization itself is a step. That's much important. Whether any wrong thing has occurred in the previous steps, your design, your population, your delimitation of the problem, so all those things should be reviewed and you have to finalize that. Then we go to the next step, that is conducting a pilot study and making revision. Even though everybody agreed that this is a very good, appropriate, suitable design, we have to test again, to conduct a small version of the actual study that we call as a pilot study. This is a piloting first study. In order to test that, we conduct a pilot study in a small portion of the sample selected. For example, we have selected in the previous example 2000 BSc nursing students. 10% of that we have to select and conduct a small version of the actual study. The tools, everything should be implemented, everything should be tested, every aspect of the study should be tested, and see that it is going smoothly and properly. And if even any problem is there in the conduct of the study, whether I am able to collect data properly according to the plan, whether I can collect the data and analyze the data properly, whether I can represent this data. So everything should be tested. The whole aspect of the should be tested. That we call as the pilot study. If some problem is there, you have to make revision also. So this is step 10. So I'll repeat the phase 2 once more. Phase 2 is the design and the planning phase. In that, the 5th step is selecting a research design. 6, identifying population to be studied. 7. Specifying methods to collect research data. 8 is designing the sampling plan. 9 is finalizing and reviewing the research plan. And 10 is conducting pilot study and making revisions. Now we go to the phase 3. We call it is the empirical phase of the research process. So this is the actual doing, intervention phase. Till now, all 2 phases were concept was generated and the planning was done. So these are the 2 phases. According to the plan, we are going to act in the 3rd phase we call as the empirical phase. Here we have only 2 steps, that is the 11th step, data collection, and the step 12, preparing data for analysis. So according to the plan, after the pilot study, using the methodology, we are collecting data. It can be a questionnaire, it can be an observation, it can be a psychological test, sociological test, or it can be a measurement. We are measuring something. So according to the plan, we are collecting data from the subjects, from the samples calculated priorly. And after data collection, we go to the step 12, that is preparing data for analysis. The raw data cannot be analyzed. So data that is collected, we have to convert into a form that is amenable for analysis. So this is what we call as the preparing data for analysis. So these 2 steps we are doing in the 3rd phase called empirical phase. I'll repeat the steps one more. 11th step, data collection, and step 12 is preparing data for analysis. Then we go to the 4th phase, that is the analytic phase. So the whole analysis is done here. Here we utilize biostatistics or different principles of statistics, methods in statistics for analysis and interpreting the findings. So these are the 2 steps. Step 13 we call as data analysis, and step 14 we call as the interpreting the result. So once the data is prepared for analysis, it is ready for analysis, we do analysis using different statistical method. Now we have already fixed by consulting others, by our prior knowledge, by reading literature, which is the suitable analysis should be used. It can be done manually for the UG students, or there are a lot of statistical packages are available. Once you enter your data into the computer data sheet, the package will analyze and will give your results. But we have to choose which analysis should be done, how you have to enter the data. So that basic background knowledge is needed for the researcher. So you have to analyze data and interpret the result. Interpretation is giving meaning for data and analysis. So now you have to interpret what is the meaning of this particular data that you have collected, how this data is important, whether you have accepted your predictions that you made in the beginning, or you are going to reject your predictions, that is a hypothesis. And if it is accepted, what is the meaning of that? What is the significance of your finding? How this finding can be incorporated into practice? If it is practice, how it is going to be useful? And again, you have to interpret like similar findings were received by other researchers, or is there any dissimilarity in the findings with others? How important your findings in comparison with the other researchers done throughout the world? Is there any other factor is going to affect? What is the limitation of your study? And what is your recommendation for other people to conduct future studies? So these are all things to be written by the researcher along with the interpretation. Then we go to the final phase. Phase 5 is called the dissemination phase. Here also we have only 2 steps. 15th step is communicating the findings, and the last step, 16th step, is utilizing the findings. So once you have analyzed that, you have to write down this properly. This is communicating. Write down the findings. So there is an accepted style, standard style is there for writing research report. So naturally all the UG, PG, PhD, postdoctoral students, they have to submit a thesis. This is one way is communicating the findings. And after that, you have to write research articles in numerous scientific journals that is present. You can present a paper in conferences, workshops, etc. We can write an article to magazines, newspapers, and you can use social medias to communicate your findings. So there are numerous methods to communicate the importance of your study and findings to the scientific community and to the public. Mainly it is meant for the scientific community. There they have to discuss. They should raise again questions further, and they have to clarify their doubts. So this is the importance of communicating. Again, we have learned in the introductory, the first class, about the importance of Florence Nightingale and Gregor Mendel, because they have communicated their findings properly to the scientific community. So based on the communication, we have to utilize the findings. That at large is the responsibility of the scientific community. They have to discuss further and further. They have to clarify the doubts. They have to develop policy for utilization, and with the permission of all the concerned persons, sometimes even with the permission of the government, etc., we have to utilize these findings. There are so many steps are there. For example, now the vaccine is developed against the COVID-19. We are trying, the trial is done, and there are so many permissions to be obtained. There are so many steps are there before administering the vaccine to the people at large. So this is utilizing the findings. So these are the different steps involved in the research process. So in a nutshell, I can say that research process is a 5-phased 16-step process. And this is a very, very important aspect of your examination. There are numerous questions, including an essay question, can be asked from this area, and you have to write down with the example, because you will be doing one project work at the end. So this project work you can quote for writing the answer for the study. But remember, for the examination, when a question is asked with the example, never write down the name of the college or the student's name when you write the answer, because that becomes an identification mark in the answer paper, and your answer will be all withheld by the university. So if you are writing down examples when you write the examination, never use any identification mark, that is the name of the college or the name of the institutions or name of the person studying for writing examination. That's very, very important for the examination part. I mean, these are some of the explanation of the formulating and delimiting the problem. What is a research question? What is research problem statement, etc. That we'll discuss further in the next unit. And what is the importance of the review of literature? Again, that we have discussed. So this is the end of the first unit. Now the notes you have to prepare by yourselves by looking at the PowerPoints, and the test will be followed. Thank you.